Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our cybersecurity career webinar this evening. And I'm extremely pleased to have Deidre Diamond with us to have a conversation on Pwning, the broken cybersecurity job market. I met Deidre last year at the first West Coast meeting of the International Consortium of Minority Cybersecurity Professionals, where Deidre was giving a workshop sharing the insights that she's put into place and put into practice as the founder and CEO of a cybersecurity staffing firm, CyberSN. I was very excited to find someone who the security job market. And so immediately started working with her to arrange an opportunity to have a conversation with all of you. So Deidre, thank you for being with us tonight. Well, I've told Deidre a little bit about all of you as Mike students, that you come from a wide range of backgrounds, and some have already worked many years in security, some are new to security, some have very technical backgrounds, others are more active in policy or audit or risk or management. And all of you are doing your master's degree online while you're working, while you are having families, lots of things going on. So you've got a lot going on, but everyone is commonly pretty much sure that you're taking this degree to advance your career in one way or another. So to start with, I guess, Deidre, if you would set the stage by giving us your overview of the cybersecurity career landscape, and what's the mental model that you use of career paths, particularly those relevant to graduates of a program like UC Berkeley's Mike's program, which is both leadership oriented and also requires the technical and policy engagement, and is holistic in our approach to cybersecurity.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It's nice to meet you all. I love Cal Berkeley. I have a niece who graduated and I'm a Californian, so near and dear to my heart. Lisa is also a very impressive professor who has gone out of her way a lot to get to me and to make this happen, and very persistent, very committed to you all. And so showing up was a no-brainer after meeting her once and seeing her passion. And so there's a lot that we can talk about. There's a lot of different angles. This is career guidance and job searching are two separate massive topics. So I'm happy to take questions at any time, meaning feel free. I'm very familiar with Zoom. I'll probably do some screen sharing. I can use the chat, so feel free to engage, and feel free to just, speak up too. And then I'm happy to make myself available if we don't finish and get to everything that people want to get to. On that note, I am a background of sociology and criminal justice is what I graduated from Cal State Fullerton in '94. And out of school, I met two serial entrepreneurs who were hiring entry-level salespeople. And they had a story of training and development within and growing companies, more than just one company. And the first company that I joined of theirs was a staffing firm. And so I got into staffing and tech staffing in the early 90s, in '94, and in Orange County, California. And we built an agency that is today a $300 million agency in IT and software. And so I have a long history in staffing. I also got into cyber in the business of cybersecurity, software, and staffing starting in 2007, where I went and was the first vice president of sales for Rapid7. They are the same founders of the staffing firm I was in for 13 years and running. So I really bridged the gap between security and staffing in that capacity, and sold to chief information security officers and so forth, and built the sales model to 50 million. So when I founded CyberSN, which is the firm today that I'm running and that is solving job searching and career information, gaps that we have, it was born of the love for the cyber professionals that I met in selling vulnerability management and building a massive sales team across the world, in my love for them, in that they're social servants and super, want to help, and that this business of cybersecurity is no joke, and holy moly, I'm right in the middle of it. This is early 2000s or mid 2000s getting involved, and imagine what it's come to. And so when it was time to found my own company, because the guys I worked for 21 years across these companies retired, it was really important for me to solve this job searching problem. So just know that my background comes from really solving job searching. It is a challenge today because of the digital era, in that content really became free. So imagine in the prior to the digital era, we used to use newspapers and we'd run an ad on Sunday. I spent 12 years of my life in that model of running an ad on Sunday, and it was $5,000 in the 90s for a little paragraph. And that's all you got. And you ran it on Sunday, and you came in on Monday and your fax rolled up paper was there. This is the system we used to run on and finding in each other. And it was very expensive, print. Well, when the digital revolution came, content now, your job descriptions now are 3-4 pages. They don't make sense. Everybody's cutting and pasting everybody else's stuff, right? And then we add on top of that cybersecurity, how complex it is. It really has caused a major problem. So what I'm out here doing, and I'll share with you in a minute, is sort of helping everybody understand the roles and responsibilities associated with titles, and how to create job descriptions, and then how to create a profile, and then how to make a match so that we can move quicker, find each other faster, and not settle. And then of course we have a full service, line behind us, behind our technology, that does the traditional staffing, and we staff all kinds of amazing, wonderful firms all over the United States. I have an amazing clientele, and CyberSN is the largest cybersecurity staffing firm in the U.S. So on that note, let me show you something I published about 3 years ago. It's the 35 job categories. It started at 30 and has advanced itself. Can everybody see my screen? Lovely. So I think the first thing to recognize is that, as we all know, cybersecurity isn't a technology. It's the business of protecting an organization, an individual, a policy, whatever it is. It's the protection of, and it's super complex depending on what company we're talking about. A security analyst could be 5 different types of backgrounds or profiles. So can an application security engineer. So can a security engineer. And so what I needed to do, because when I started CyberSN, our cost of matching wasn't enough to make a sustainable business. And coming from building a sustainable staffing agency, I knew what my problem was. I couldn't move through matching. What is this job? And what does this person do and know? And, it took us too long and too costly. So I built this. And this is something that we utilize to, work with clients, to teach. You can see there's non-technical roles here. We've got our technical roles. We've got our leadership roles. There's no question that people go between all of them in their careers, and I'm sure many of you have. I know plenty of folks that started as penetration testers that are now in leadership, and some that go up through the tech roles, and many go over here to the non-tech roles and back and forth. It is a very fluid industry from what I have seen, and yet when somebody needs a job filled, or when somebody's in their sort of career, there needs to be really defined roles and responsibilities. And so the first thing we needed to do was get these 35 job categories down and really look at what's happening within each of these. I will stop here for a moment and see if anybody has any questions or thoughts or want to chime in here. I then can move into what are some of the biggest roles the roles where there's the most opportunity, if you will. Happy to do so. Let me check in and see how everybody's doing. Anybody got any questions? I can't see chat while I'm screen sharing. I don't know. So go ahead and just speak up. Otherwise, I can keep going. We're good? Lisa, you're good? Everybody can hear good? I can see you, Lisa. Okay, awesome.
I think we're good. I don't see anything in chat either.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay, so where are the bulk of the positions today? The bulk of the positions today are in these technical roles. This is where the business started because it's the first line of protection for us all was data. And so this is where our industry's, jobs really started. And also where we know the most, sort of attacks are coming in through our information security. And so you see these jobs at the organizations and having security operations centers, having layers of engineers in the Fortune 500, really starting to grow right now. We are understaffed in all organizations to actually be, quote, secure. The industry is still growing. You all know we're short 500,000 folks in the US and just about 2 million internationally. So, while this is the largest population of cybersecurity professionals today, we see that continuing to grow. It's not slowing down. But where we're really seeing the increase of roles that weren't moving too quickly and now are moving quickly to volume levels is folks in privacy and risk, for sure. Certainly privacy. This is our industry's biggest challenge currently today, beyond protecting ourselves, but in terms of the sort of the massive work that we have to do to really own privacy is right upon us. And so there's a lot of focus going to that skill set right now and need to that skill set. It would be silly to say any of these aren't needed, you know what I mean, or aren't needed at a high level. It is, a career line that is growing very, very quickly. It doesn't necessarily feel like that when job searching. In fact, I know most cyber professionals just feel like, how could there be a shortage when job searching is so awful? The amount of people it takes to talk to one that actually is a fit is massive without support with even, without support of an agency like us. And even with us, it's still a challenge because there's the whole country to conquer. So anyhow, the roles that are growing the fastest today happen to be on the risk and the privacy policy side of things, but there's been no slowdown on the technical. So meaning it's just the others are starting to catch up, if you will. And then, of course, particularly cloud are the highest paid positions. Anybody with a cloud security engineering background, architecture, cloud architecture, those are our highest paying roles in the technical roles. And right there with that is security operations and, leads and architects. And now we're seeing DevSecOps, Dev Security Ops, Development Security Ops. Not a lot of people love that term, but it is the phrase that the industry is using. We are seeing that rise a lot. But cloud is today some of the highest paying roles. But truly, they're not. There's no significant big gap between any of them. Know that. It's just the cloud is the newest, and so there's a little bit of a gap there if you've got that skill.
Just to jump in a second, Deidre, do you see a big difference in salaries, comparative salaries across the country for comparable jobs?
Yes, there's definitely a difference. No question that the Bay Area is the highest paid salaries in security. And then it's New York. And then you've got some equality with Boston and Chicago. And so, yes, and then the cities that are smaller are typically making less as well. And that is a challenge for the community right now. So the employers that are thinking strategically are open for remote. and or willing to pay the salary to get somebody to move, and so be it if they have a lower cost of living. But it's still few and far between, because at a enterprise level, a corporation has to keep equality of pay and positions, and you got IT and cyber, still gets meshed with IT, and equal pay, and it's super complicated for an enterprise to do that. But for a small company, and there's many, they're doing that. The consulting firms, the MSPs that have the money, that aren't an enterprise that has to worry about, the legalities of thousands of people not, in the mix of what's fair and not fair for relocation packages and so forth and so forth. It's different. It's harder. We are seeing a lot more remote roles, and that is awesome, because many professionals want them, and we just started seeing it. We've been asking for 5 years, so we're just starting to see that. So that's exciting. I think that, something else to share, those of you interested in these leadership roles, or, in them now and wanting to continue to grow, there's a lot of movement in the C-level, and that's unfortunate. And so there's some real important things to focus on, like, why do they want a chief information security officer, and what is the commitment, and what is the budget? Really understanding the role is important, because there's been a lot of movement, which means people are making decisions without a lot of information. And when I mean a lot of movement, I mean, a chief information security officer is on average in their role 18 months in the United States. And, it takes a good year to even understand how a company operates. And that's the fastest I've been able to do it. It's, I don't even know if that's normal to say that's what somebody else, it could be 2 years. Like, it just makes no sense to me in that quick movement of how, that happens, other than people aren't on the same page. So those of you that are in leadership roles, it's really important that you speak about the tasks and the projects that need to get done, and really get into what the job is and understand it, make sure you want to do it. It's super important, because I think people speak a lot at the high level when they're getting into these roles. And I see somebody in the chat. Let's see. Are these roles based on NICE? I wouldn't necessarily say they're based on NICE, but the folks behind my platform, and I'll share that in a second here, are all trained from NICE, NIST platform background, government security professionals, commercial security professionals. They are the ones that fulfilled my need, which was to take each of these roles. I cannot get this chat to stop, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second and see if I can get it out of my screen. I did. They're the ones that, and I'll show you this here and share again, are behind the taxonomy of all these roles and responsibilities as we take them into what I'll show you right now, which is our job board, and you'll understand what this translates into. And I would really encourage everybody to make a profile. You don't want to, you don't want to, only search a job at the moment that you're ready. It's nice to have jobs come to you over the course of your career. And so when I built this platform, I built it because, one, we need a place as professionals to have a profile that companies can engage us on jobs with without having to show our identity and all these details about us like LinkedIn has. And so I wanted us to have a way to do that such that we could really, connect with employers easily, and also a place that employers could recruit from. So on my platform, you'll see jobs that look like this, and this job description here is rolls up under all those 35 job categories, functional roles. There's a question answers behind them that create a job like this, such that people can be matched to jobs in a capacity that makes sense and they're not wasting their time. So this job is a real job. There's plenty of them within our system. It is in San Francisco. It is a CyberSN job. And we base, you know, this job has all these functional roles included, and then this is their breakdown. And it tells you if they're allowed to work from home, if we can work from home at all, if they'll sponsor visas, that kind of a thing, which is really important. And then you'll see here, this is where professionals have the same. So any one of you can make your own profile. Everybody's confidential. Employers can see your profile and what you need in terms of sponsorship, or if you have degrees and they have to have a degree or what have you. And you have the same type of breakdown through just clicking question answers. And so this is how we make our matches. We base it on functional roles. We base it on salary bands, you know, meaning what kind of salaries people are, bands they're in. And we go above and below in terms of the match, because you never know. You know, you want to be close to the money, but not way off. We go by location. We go by citizenship needs. And our plan is, you know, to really disrupt the job searching path that happens today for all of us. And we're going to prove it in cybersecurity, because it's not just impacting cybersecurity; it's impacting all professions. People are matching, you know, garbage content to garbage content. But anyhow, so nice and long-winded to say is behind. I was trying to get into showing, you know, that we're really going deep into these tasks and projects that are associated with functional roles. And I'll stop here again, and we can get into other things. And there's more people. Lovely to see you. So that was really my answer, Lisa, to what's sort of happening in the marketplace of jobs, is to say, well, it's vast. You know, I've got a resource that can help us shape it. Got a resource to help us, you know, market ourselves, which is that, you know, ability to have a profile and market ourselves, and also look for jobs. And I know we wanted to talk about just searching in general. Shall we move into that? Is that or do we want to take some questions?
Going back to what we titled this, that was the broken job market, and you were alluding to that, but could you say specifically why you say that the job market is broken? What we included one of your blog posts about that.
Yeah, so it's broken because we can't search and match. It's broken because organizations don't have succession planning. Cybersecurity still isn't heavily funded such that entry-level people can come into, you know, a group, get trained and developed and promoted from within. We're doing very little of that. And most people are doing 3 different jobs in one. The purple unicorn has become something that people think is funny or cute, or I want a purple unicorn, but it's really about somebody doing 2 or 3 jobs in one. And so we haven't, because we haven't advanced in that, which is in many ways makes so much sense. I mean, think about the kind of money that's being spent today in cybersecurity and how much it was even just 5 years ago. I mean, it's massively different and costly, and CEOs really don't know, you know, how much to spend, and, you know, should I just be compliant, or should I go after security? And most people are choosing compliance still today, and compliance means understaffed. And compliance means doing lots of jobs. So job searching is broken in that even once we find something, what's the satisfaction level based on, you know, being understaffed? And therefore, you know, making the right choices is something one has to learn by taking a job or two, in terms of how to interview the employer and make sure you're getting into a place that is going to nurture and train and develop you, and And that's my biggest message to you all, is that, you know, take advantage of today's marketplace of being short 500,000 by choosing wisely. And even though job searching is super not fun, make it fun and take it on, and don't settle. If there's anything in your gut that says no, then no, you know, or share it with them, and the no that's going on, and see if they can change it in the conversation of this job. Really settling is something that is happening because of job searching challenges, I believe, and I believe it just because I feel it, but also because I have the data of how much people move jobs. So, you know, those of us that are in this industry, you know, can make a difference and teach leadership and management the importance of investing in training and investing in, you know, career conversations and allowing that to happen in cybersecurity. And so I think that, you know, when you think about a broken system, we're short 500,000, but we really struggled bringing in entry level. It's, I mean, there isn't a not-for-profit that doesn't call me. And still, I was at one event yesterday, and 2 not-for-profits showed up just to get to me about how can you help me place my students? Because, you know, it's hard to get the entry-level people in. Like, people are challenged with absorbing that. And into their, they need to, you know, hit the ground running, you know, like carry this project, get things done. So we've got to change, you know, we've got to solve that while we continue doing. And, you know, luckily every year, you know, cyber becomes more and more important, more and more, you know, the truth is that if it weren't for compliance, we wouldn't have an industry. I mean, I saw it like, you know, day and night in, when I started in cyber, it was 2007, selling vulnerability management software, which is Rapid7's, you know, legacy. And it wasn't until PCI started fining people in 2009 that anybody really cared. I mean, the people that cared were the big banks because they didn't want to get robbed, you know, they're the only, you know, that's it. Healthcare didn't care, energy didn't care, like, you know, I know, we were out there selling it. It's not much different today. And so that being said, there's people creating more and more policy and compliance. And so we see more and more of people investing, CEOs investing in cybersecurity. It is a business and it's costly.
So for those, before we go to some of the questions that have come into chat, on that tack of the newcomers or the entry-level jobs, and I would having a master's degree from Berkeley would put you, I would hope, at a slot above the entry level. But if you are not already in security and don't have that foot in the door already, do you have secret sauce of how to get into there from that coming to security from outside?
Yeah, the key is to know what role or roles, and it's okay to have a few roles identified that one wants. Most people will say they'll hire entry level if the person has passion. So how do you show passion? You show passion by knowing the roles you're interested in. You show passion by getting involved in, let's say, an open source project or a capture the flag or a hackathon for the technical roles. You know, get involved in any of that. Go to meetups, they're free. Meet those people, get involved with them. Shows passion that you're at these meetups. People tend to hire entry-level people from meetups, as I see it. Submit to talks. A lot of these, you know, meetups and associations are allowing juniors as well as seniors to submit a talk. You know, be able to put that on your resume. Those are in terms of entry level, you know, really trying to get in. That's beyond networking with everybody and anybody and being super aggressive, and don't worry about following up 3 times. Keep following up. People are busy. It's not that they don't like you. Just keep following up until they give you something, and ask them for referrals and ask them to introduce you to people, and be very aggressive. Being aggressive is good. People like it, and it just helps them prioritize who they're helping.
So
at least that's how I feel.
Maybe you're not new in the job market. You've been a professional in some other capacity. You may be new to the security capacity. Is there a good way to show your transferable skills into security that you've found to be a really good way to show your outside experience and not come in entry level, even though you're relatively new to security? So I know you have a master's degree in cybersecurity, but you haven't been an operational job in security.
I would apply to leadership roles. You know, I'm speaking at RSA this year, and I'm actually the closer of Monday and the first day, which is awesome for me, meaning I've been speaking on Thursdays and Fridays. It's not as popular, but you know, you get to Monday, it's great. So, and was asked to be the closer. And my talk is about emotional intelligence skills. I do a lot of training on it. ISC Squared certifies my classes, but my point is that's how serious this topic is to all professions, particularly cybersecurity, and in that the ability to communicate, the ability to have a win-win conversation, the ability to handle conflict and calm, cool, collected resolution skills. Those, you know, what's called emotional intelligence skills are super important. So, you know, sell yourself as, you know, having that, because the masters suggest that you've got a holistic understanding of cybersecurity, and that you're a leader and an entrepreneur, and you want to, you know, you really want to lead things and do things at a leadership level. And we need leadership. Even as technical, never managed people, it's still, leadership isn't necessarily management. It's how we sell our communication skills, our project management skills, our knowledge of how cybersecurity fits into business is what you want to highlight. And then why not go do a capture the flag? They have ones now that, or you take in somebody that's never done one, WOSEC, which is Women of Security, what have you, and I'm sure they let men into it, I hope so. But anyhow, they just did one that was international, and you know, in entry level, they'll help you while they do it. The Kris Kringle of SANS contest that they do at the holidays, you know, like my whole company, I had everybody do that this year, and you know, it's something that can show that you're passionate and you're interested to know what other people, and you know, maybe you're not in a technical role, but just to see what they're doing. To get involved in that way shows passion. You can put those things on your resume, and there's a lot of them that are free. And that's the beauty of this industry too. There's a lot of that giving back, a lot of meetups, a lot of them.
Thanks for those ideas about that transferable skills. I think that's a really key piece for us to hear. So there are a few questions in the chat that I want to, and Anna, are you trying to ask on this topic? Was that,
It's a little related, I feel. We talked about remote opportunities in the beginning of this conversation. And I just want to get your opinion on how you think they're becoming a lot more popular, a lot more sought after. How do you feel they reflect on future leadership opportunities? Someone transitions to a remote role and it's convenient, it may fit their lifestyle, but how would that reflect on just their trajectory if they're thinking about getting into leadership positions?
Yeah, great question. So I'll restate what I think the question is, and you tell me if I got it, which is, how does somebody who's in leadership in cybersecurity pull off a remote role? Is it possible? Is that happening, to be in leadership and be remote? Is that correct? Okay.
Is it conducive? Would it be detrimental to someone's career in terms of moving into a leadership trajectory? It's just in your experience.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so the interesting thing about remote is it usually comes with travel. So, right? So it all depends on what you mean by remote. If you mean remote and you're not going to travel to the offices or the main offices or, you know, be at some leadership meetings once a month or once a quarter, it will stunt your ability to really be in a leadership role of significance. But if you're willing to travel and go be where other leaders are on a regular basis and be with the with people and visit your team, yes. I've actually seen more of that at the Chief Information Security Officer level in 2019 than I ever expected, and it really is super awesome. I know people that are on the East Coast as the Chief Information Security Officer for the West Coast, working from home a lot, on both, doing it on both coasts, and but they travel, and I would say that travel is probably, you know, 30%, 35, up to maybe 50. It depends on what Fortune level you're going. If you're in the Fortune 100, you're definitely 50, maybe more, because it's probably international travel as well. So it just depends on the company size and what have you. Yeah, as long as you're willing to travel, I wouldn't look at it as a job or career, you know, holding you back at all. Yeah, and thank goodness, because if we can't do that with technology, like what the heck did we do all this for, other than going, you know, to the moon and flying in the sky? Meaning, you know, like it's, oh my gosh, oh, and healthcare. Let's see, other questions here. Are you seeing jobs needed for consulting part-time? Yeah, so consulting, there's not as much contract in cybersecurity as there is, let's say, IT, because going back to that whole budget and, you know, having a few people in most organizations, corporations really want to be like, oh, well, we can't, you know, have a contractor as our cyber, you know, leaders or team, right? Like that's still the feeling today in the small groups. When you get into the Fortune 500, you'll find that most often, or if not all of them, have some sort of combination of consultants, contractors, perm, a managed service provider, you know, there's, you know, talent, if you will, being found different ways. Is very common and absolutely necessary. Like there's just no other way to do it based on how hard it is to find each other and just the lack of talent in general. So from a part-time perspective, you know, I don't see any of it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So I did build the platform to have part-time. My reasoning was because I also have a not-for-profit called Secure Diversity, and I've spent almost the last 5 years really bringing women the knowledge of the 35 job categories. I don't care what age they are. I've been bringing them the knowledge, and then if they're interested, helping them get in and providing free training and certifications and such. And so Secure Diversity has shown me that, you know, I want to really pave the way for part-time work for people that are working or still have children or what have you, maybe a parent they need to care for. So the platform is designed to expand, and we just launched at Black Hat, and I haven't even launched all my strategic relationships yet and all that stuff. So you know, we're in the beginning. It's not going to take us too long to really let the world know it's here. It's international. So not only do I want to be able to, you know, offer part-time and internships is coming. It's the only thing I don't have right now. But also the ability to work in another country. And, you know, how do you do that? How does another country find you if you don't work for the Big Four? You know, and that's really what's happening is everybody has to work for the Big Four or, you know, the big consulting companies to get to be able to work in another country. And I think that's silly. And so, you know, right now the platform offers the international ability, and really where I want to take it is to have the guidance of how do you know, if you were going to go work in Italy, what would you need? You know, how would sponsorship work? You know, the knowledge behind it so that we can continue to get the diversity, you know, problem solve, which is mix as much as we can with each other. Like that's our, you know, for me, that's the key to all of this, for sure. As somebody who's got a father who's born and raised in Palestine, you know, his stepfather is African American, a mom from Pennsylvania, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes. Like, I'm super lucky to have been immersed in culture, never mind growing up in California. And so I get what it can create. So I'm really committed to that. Let's see here. What do you think of the impact of ransom? Oh,
actually, the last question is very tied to what you were just talking about of visas. So maybe not, and we'll come back to Mary's question, but Rimo-chan's question of what percentage of leadership roles, senior manager and up, are willing to sponsor a work visa, do you think, approximately?
Oh, this is, I not only think I know, this is something that just I track, I'm fascinated by. So it's maybe this will shock you. It shocked me, but that's for sure. I opened my California practice almost 3 years ago. It's now my largest practice. And 40% of what we do is folks that need visa sponsorship. And not once in any other state in the United States have we placed somebody that's gotten the visa sponsorship. So thus far, California, San Francisco specifically is the place that is sponsoring visas. Now, when you talk about the Fortune 100, if you're in a SOC or you could be in any country, basically, based on who they are, they're sponsoring. But it's very little in the rest of the organizations, if none in anywhere other than San Francisco have we seen this. Wow. It's just fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Fascinating. And think, right? The Bay Area is the leader in this, and not even LA. I mean, truly, it's the Bay Area, and how incredible is that? And so again, you know, having the platform for me really matters because we want to be able to show people. But look, you know, it's like I was telling my clients, but look, if I filter this search and it says we'll sponsor, look at how many more people you get to choose from. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, having that data helps.
And is that sponsorship available when you're talking of San Francisco for senior management and up, or is that for, you mentioned SOC, people that are working in the SOC, what jobs are they willing to?
Yeah, great question. Those are, anybody in the technical roles and the leadership roles. At any level in the technical roles, we're doing that. I mean, of course, we don't do entry level because people aren't paying us for that. But if somebody's got a year of, you know, security engineering or a senior or in the SOC and they've got some good experience, we can place them and they'll get sponsorship in San Francisco.
So you just said a year. That's really takes you out of entry level once you've been beyond a year?
Yeah. Yeah, give me 2 and I won't even think about it anymore. You know, it's just never worked in, you know, a security operation of any kind. They're just not, I mean, you can go to the colleges, you can go to the not-for-profits, they're not going to pay me or my firm to go through that work for it, you know, is really what it comes down to. And they're not hiring them anyway. Like it's not, the majority of my clients are not, even though they're, you know, medium to large corporations, they're not hiring entry level. You know where the entry level is going is the managed service providers. And that's because they have full training programs. They make revenue from those folks instantly. You know, eyes on data is where they're making a lot of their money and just managing alerts. And so they can take those juniors.
And just what, off the top of your head, what companies are those that are the managed service providers that are hiring those entry levels?
That are out there? So you've got everybody from Optiv, which is sort of the mid-size MSSP that has sort of taken over in the last year. They compete with GuidePoint. I'm sure there's some others at their size. And then you've got you know, the ServiceNow and SecureWorks and IBM's, you know, operation. And so they've all sort of created their own managed service. So AT&T now has a managed service. And so the Fortune 100 have, a lot of them have created managed services too.
So if you found somebody who was coming in, we talked earlier about being transferable skills and coming in by explaining and showing your emotional intelligence, would there be a value in the strategy of assuming that you can coming in entry level into a technical role such as a SOC, and then being able to go quickly up the ladder based on your
Absolutely.
background?
Absolutely. If you have EQ skills, you know, like you can be a positive person that can still deal with conflict and stay calm, cool, and collected, you can advance very, very quickly. I hired my chief security officer 3.5 years ago, and we had our first incident maybe after a year together, and I had never had one before. And let me just tell you, the fact that he was calm, cool, and collected and stayed calm, cool, and collected is the best thing ever. And his entire team, it was like being in an emergency situation and just knowing that they've got it. It's like, you know, being sick and the ambulance shows up, or being really hurt, you know, like it was critical. And that's what's happening all day in those operations, you know, and the leaders of those functional roles. And so everybody in security needs to be calm, cool, and collected. I think everybody in business needs to be calm, cool, and collected. And you know, that's a whole nother, you know, like challenge of mine in the future in terms of making society own EQ skills for the workforce. But you know, there's no doubt that it excels an individual in security fast, because people are, you know, scared, lots of information, you know, selling fear isn't really what you want to do, and it's what the past has been about for security leaders. And so if you can really engage and talk to leadership with that and make sense and guide them, and as well as handle incidents calmly, and, you know, it's what everybody wants.
Thanks. Okay, so we have about 12 minutes left, and a couple of questions, or a question from Mary about ransom attacks and that shift to compliance and security. And I also want to make sure before we end that we talk about social media. And I want to ask folks to put in any other questions that you want to try for us to hit before we hit 6:30 into chat. So those couple of things, Mary's question, and I want to point out, if I'm not mistaken, Mary is, if you're able to come back online, is our new career advisor for Mike. So really glad she just started this week, and want to have her, and glad she can meet those of you that are on the call. And it's great for you to be connecting with this too, Mary. So thank you, and for your question also.
Yay, nice to meet you, Mary. Ransom attacks and impacting compliance and security. So it's only attacks that impact any compliance. The more attacks, the more compliance we get. It's, you know, it's sort of how it goes. And, you know, most of us fear the attack that actually takes human life on a regular basis based on how this has worked, meaning there's, I don't know if you've ever heard of I Am Calvary, Josh Corman. He's out there making the fight for security within, you know, medical devices and in transportation, in places that really are not getting attention and still very, very challenged. So unfortunately, this is how it works. Every time we have some sort of attack that hurts, more compliance and policy comes. And it is how capitalism is built, actually, is what I've come to recognize. That doesn't mean that those of us that are in leadership roles can't act differently and convince people in our organizations to do the right thing with security. That's my hope. And those that are working in those roles that are really could affect human life. it's super important.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Let's see.
So onto the social media issue. So, you know, we have recently Jack Bezos' iPhone being hacked, and that, you know, WhatsApp is not the same as LinkedIn, but it does bring to that question of social media that people in security tend to, or may have good reason to avoid social media, avoid LinkedIn. We have a hard time getting Mike's students to fill out Berkeley Connect because do they trust it? It's some other URL. Do they want to
Yeah.
answer the survey?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how do you know, what do you think
Yeah.
people should do in security around social media? How do you show
Yeah.
that you're actually
Well,
a leader?
it's real. Yeah, it's real. So first of all, 2FA on anything, you are doing whatever you decide to do, right? Like my platform has 2FA. I've never seen my CSO more depressed when we had to change it to default because of cyber professionals being challenged with 2FA. So I say 2FA because too many take it too lightly, and it is your biggest protector. The LinkedIn problem is real, particularly for those who are in roles where being socially engineered is a part of their you know, surroundings. And so we find that 35% of the professionals that are on LinkedIn that are cybersecurity are cybersecurity professionals, and so meaning there's a massive population that's not there. Most of the real technical cyber professionals are making their LinkedIn profile just so that their identity doesn't get stolen, but they don't have it active. So they park it and they're not checking it, but they have one, so to speak, if you will, but it doesn't have a lot of data. Mostly you find leadership because that's how they get found for jobs because of how broken job searching is. But nobody wants to make their identity that public typically, other than the, you know, sort of the ambassadors of CISOs out there trying to promote working for software companies or whatever. So it is why I made the platform, you know, anonymous, in that not only do we not know your name, we don't know you know, your gender, your race, your religious beliefs at all, meaning there's just no way to tell. And it's not necessary to make a match. It also serves a purpose, I believe, in removing conscious or unconscious bias from a name, a picture, or a gender association. So I encourage everybody to make a profile, spread the word. This is where we have to change the game. There's many pieces. So yeah, it's a problem. It's a big problem. And security professionals are being social engineered, you know, they know that, or at least they're afraid of it, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. We actually did have somebody posing as a Mike's student. It was a bot, so it did something. It was not making much sense, but that did come in the feed and was, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Some of you might remember that. So watch out for that if you have people trying to friend you. You know, they go back to that statement of don't friend the people that you, or don't link to the people that you don't actually know.
Yeah, well, on that note, you know, using a job opening to social engineer someone is very common. And people are let their guard down more when they're talking about a job, and you know, maybe they think they're even talking to a recruiter. We find CyberSN branded LinkedIn profiles faking to be recruiters, you know, all too often for me. So resumes are also a big source of malware and just spreading viruses and that. So because it's such a large part of what's happening for an organization is talent acquisition, or for a person, it's a good, easy in, if you will, right. To a guard being down. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple more questions. Let's try to squeeze in. So areas of focus in cybersecurity with the most growth, AppSec privacy. I think you mentioned that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and I'd put AppSec over privacy, because most companies are going to have one privacy person, but you're going to have a lot more AppSec people in most, you know, if you've got a privacy person, you probably have multiples of AppSec. AppSec has been growing. I was going to say, anything in the technical role is just growing at a consistently high pace, hasn't stopped over since I've gotten involved, but just seeing privacy to even grow is what is happening. Are there any benchmarks to find out if we are underpaid or overpaid? Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. That is such a hot topic for me, because most of the time until the Equal Pay Act, there was such an inequality going on. It was hard for everybody to deal with. So now that there's the Equal Pay Act, there's a lot more equality going on, and we've been seeing people get $40,000 or $50,000 raises in both genders because of it. It's been a positive impact. That being said, you know, you can browse profiles and jobs today and get some perspective. I'm maybe 3 months away from launching a real-time salary guide. My biggest cost of sale is getting an organization to understand what's going to, you know, what kind of money they need to offer somebody so that we actually can get somebody. And so I need this data publicly available, you know, to help us all. So it's coming. That being said, in the meantime, I would browse the jobs and see, you know, the experience and what people are making and so forth. Let's see. Seems like crowdsourcing research to look into. I'm like, yeah, you know, Glassdoor. I mean, anything like Glassdoor has a pay-to-play option, but I don't know any that don't have pay-to-play. So your best bet in figuring out an organization is to do a good interview. Don't look at what you're doing as them interviewing you. You're interviewing them too. And so be prepared, ask questions, like really be interested and interesting, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. Again, if your questions bother them since they don't hire you, it's not the right place for you. So you're actually doing yourself a service of making sure you don't take a job somewhere that's not a good fit for you. So speak your mind, speak your questions, be prepared, keep eye contact, smile, be interested and interesting, and never shut the doors. Just tell people what you're thinking and feeling, and a lot of times they'll create other jobs. It happens all the time. If you're willing to stay in the conversation, well, you know, I really want to do this. I mean, that sounds a little bit more like this, and not, be surprised what people will do for you when you stay in a conversation and engage them positively and share what you're thinking, you know? Do we have any, let's see, do those salary sites adjust for the silicon? No, none of them adjust for anything, because the data is so old and we see the salaries change every month. I mean, the numbers are literally changing on a regular basis, and the best number I can give you is that security professionals are paid 25% higher than IT and software today. So one of the challenges we have is, you know, people not liking that, you know, as peers, so to speak. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge for organizations. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're
I see a lot of thank yous.
Deidre, thank you so much for this time. And I hope that folks will check out CyberSN and contact you through that site if there are lingering questions. I think there'll be lots of ways for us to connect in the future. So imagine this as a foot in the door and a first step in our long-term relationship, hopefully, with Mike's. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I look for trainers to join some of our Day of Security events and teach. We have, bye-bye. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.